Streamlabs not be a piece of shit, we can do this. Let me just set my exposure. Okay, so basically this is a big disclaimer saying that, you know, if you're suicidal, go talk to somebody on the suicidal prevention hotline. They want to illustrate as clearly as possible what depression is like. So, you know, this is not going to be a fun time to people who are easily depressed or triggered or whatever. I mean, you know, maybe if you deal with this yourself, maybe you'll find some commonality with it and maybe it'll be enlightening, or at least an enjoyable experience just in the sense that, you know, you're not alone. But anyway, view controls. Scroll page, select next option, select previous option, confirm action. Okay. Alright. Let's do this. It is early on a Monday morning. You are a mid-20s human being. You have a significant other named Alex, who you are rather fond of, that you have been seeing exclusively for the past few months. The rest of your social circle consists of a variety of friends and acquaintances, some of whom you met at your day job, which is a little boring, but pays the rent. You'd like to be doing more with your life, as would your parents, but you're still in the process of figuring out what that means and how to go about it. You are also dealing with motivation issues that sometimes makes dealing with these things difficult. You feel like this is probably your fault, and on bad days can feel inwardly angry and down on yourself for being lazy, but you're not quite sure how you can break out of it, or how other people deal with these feelings and seem so very functional. You spend a lot of nights fixating on thinking about this, but never seem to do anything about it other than lose sleep. I mean, I can identify with that quite a bit, except for the significant other part. What? You met Alex through a mutual friend a few months back. The two of you hit it off pretty well that first night, and after a series of initially awkward dates, you finally became a couple, much to your surprise and excitement. Alex is 3 months younger than you are, and is currently a student with a part-time job and broad social circle. She's also got a wide variety of interests, and oftentimes you worry that you might be too boring for her, but she has been good at trying to reassure you that she's happy with you. Your relationship consists of a lot of nights in watching Netflix when you've both got the time off work and she doesn't have classes, with the occasional social outing that she tends to have to talk to you into attending. She tries to be understanding when you are in one of your moods, as she puts it, though you are starting to feel like she doesn't understand what it's like for you. And this is a source of tension in your relationship. Coupled with your reluctance to want to go to college parties, this feeds your worry of not being exciting enough for them. Okay. Your social circle is made up of a few close friends, some of which you've known from high school and some from jobs that you've worked. You've also made acquaintances through reluctantly going to social events with Alex, and you keep in touch with a few friends of friends that you occasionally run into. You also have several online friends that you talk to regularly, that you feel less guarded with, possibly due to communicating from the safety of being behind the keyboard. You enjoy the low commitment of the friendships, since they don't expect very much of you other than to listen and share personal thoughts and experiences. Despite the low commitment, you feel fairly connected with these people, and tend to be more honest with them than people you interact with in real life on a day-to-day basis. You feel incredibly nervous trying to make new friends on your own, and are very good at talking yourself out of going to unfamiliar places or larger social engagements, regardless of how much you may actually want to attend. Meeting new people stresses you out to a high degree, and this is something you wish you could work past. You admit you have a bad habit of flaking on social engagements, even with longtime friends, and are puzzled as to why some days you just can't force yourself to go see these people that you really do care about. Those that have stuck around long enough to be that close with you understand that this is the thing that you sometimes do, and have seemed to more or less accept it, even though they chide you for it on occasion. However, you've had friends in the past give up trying to maintain a friendship with you because of this trait, taking your social anxieties as a personal slight, or eventually getting tired of trying to track you down all the time. You feel incredibly guilty about this, but are not quite sure how to change. Again, I can relate. Oh my god, so really— oh my god, what the fuck? Oh hey, Atomic Killer. How's it going? Good to see you, and thank you for the follow, or the host. Jesus, I can talk. You have a day job which you feel is really nothing special. You started out receiving minimum wage, but have stayed around long enough to be making enough to support yourself. The work is dull and unrewarding, and most days you feel like just about anyone can do it. You have a hard time relating to most of your coworkers, so you mostly keep to yourself and get the work done while you're there. There are one or two people you chat with, though you wouldn't consider yourself close with them. A lot of days lately, you have a really hard time getting out of bed and forcing yourself to go in. You're starting to wonder how long you can keep this up. You'd really like to find another job in your field of interest, but feel like you are underqualified every time you look at online job postings. Sometimes you think about going back to school, but you would be unsure how you would be able to support yourself and wonder if the degree would really help anyway. That I don't identify with too much. I actually have a pretty amazing job, all things considered. But I mean, I don't really connect with my co-workers, so I guess that is something I can identify with. You're one of the few people you know of whose parents never got divorced, but you do wonder if they still love each other sometimes. Nope, my parents divorced when I was very young, and my dad was abusive. He was a good dad outside of being, occasionally abusive, because he has bipolar disorder and he has a temper, a really bad temper. But, apart from his occasional outbursts, he was actually a really, really good dad in pretty much every way. So I have a bit more of a complex thing going on. But, you have an older brother named Malcolm who has moved across the country with his wife to work a high-paying job. Every major holiday that you see him at, you feel a bit jealous and like the lesser kid despite being genuinely happy to see him. You feel very ashamed of these feelings. Your parents genuinely care about you. This often involves inviting you back to your childhood home for dinner, though your mother thinks you never visit quite enough. I can identify with that. But you get the impression they don't fully understand you. They want to see you succeed and don't know why you haven't gone far in life yet because you're so smart and talented. Anytime you've tried to talk with them about your motivational issues, they tell you that the solution is simply to work harder or want it more. Your father is generally more forgiving of your lack of career path, while your mother seems to think you're too smart to be in the position you're in. You know they love you and that they're not bad people, but you really feel like a big disappointment sometimes. I mean, I feel like a big disappointment just because my dad has accomplished so much more in his life. I mean, thankfully, both my parents and my stepmother, they all are very understanding about my mental health issues because they actually took time to educate themselves. But, again, I feel like a disappointment just because my dad has done so much in his life that I literally cannot compare. So, I mean, that's where I am with this. Anyway, continuing. It's an unseasonably warm Wednesday evening. You spent the past several hours at work. The past week or so, you found your job motivation flagging more than usual. You've been in a fog practically all day today, simply going through the motions without realizing even what you've been doing half the time. And yet, time seemed to be moving at half speed. Hey Atomic, if you are listening at the moment, can you tell me how the audio sounds? Like how my voice is balanced with the music and all that? Because I don't want to be drowned out by this, but I also don't want it to be too quiet. You're so checked out that when your boss approaches you to tell you that it's dead and you can go home early, it barely registers. As you walk home, the streets hiss from the recent rainfall. You know that your significant other will be in classes until late, another couple hours at least. You briefly consider using this serendipitous solitude to catch up on that project that you've been working haphazardly on for the past 2 months. What was the project? A while back, you and some of your older friends were out at a bar catching up. After liquefying considerably more of your paycheck than was perhaps responsible, and ending up thoroughly in your cups, you open up to the only people you really consider yourself close to, and end up launching into a drunken tirade about the meaninglessness of your utterly menial job, and ultimately your own existence. I mean, I feel like there's a meaningless to my own existence, despite the fact that I have a really good job. So, I mean, can't have everything in the world, I guess, Even job satisfaction doesn't buy happiness. Having never really seen you in such a state before, your friends were briefly taken aback by your sudden uncharacteristic outburst. Oh no, my friends are well acquainted with my issues. One of your friends suggested, the few friends that I do have, the very few friends that I do have. One of your friends suggested that you get involved with your hobby on a more regular, long-term basis, suggesting that spending your energy on something you actually care about might help you to better cope with the shittiness of your 9-to-5. Although you were embarrassed that you let your guard down and you felt self-conscious at seeming to have single-handedly brought the mood down at the table, you convinced yourself on the cab ride home that maybe it would be worth trying out. You began your project some months ago and have, miraculously, managed to keep at it, though your level of motivation and subsequent effort rises and falls considerably. While you were surprised when you started at how good it felt to actually work on something you were passionate about, lately you found it hard to muster the energy to really care about even this. Okay, back to the Wednesday evening. As soon as you think about the work that awaits you at home, you can feel the panic creeping in from the back of your brain, unbidden. Oh my god, now I'm suddenly reminded of YouTube videos. I used to be really into making YouTube videos, and then I got burnt out on the editing process, which is so fucking tedious. Like seriously, after I made my highlight video, I was just, I was so burnt out on editing that the only other video I made since then was the Subnautica Part 2 highlight video, which was okay. I personally prefer the first Subnautica highlight video, but, whatever. Anyway. All you can think about is how incredibly far behind you are, and the amount of work seems nothing less than insurmountable. By the time you arrive home and change out of your uncomfortable work clothes, the stress is weighing down on you like a heavy, wet wool blanket. Your computer seems to be staring you down from your desk. You want to sit down and work, but the mere thought of trying to work sends your stress levels flying. More than anything, you feel suddenly and absolutely exhausted, and feel a strong desire to simply hide in bed. Do you? Oh. Order some food, grab a drink, and hunker down for a night of work is not an option. Reluctantly sit down at your desk and try to make yourself do something. Turn on the TV, telling yourself you just need a quick half hour to unwind from work. Crawl into bed. You're so stressed and overwhelmed you couldn't possibly accomplish anything anyways. You're depressed. Interaction is exhausting and you are becoming more and more withdrawn. You are not currently seeing a therapist. Well, that's your first mistake. You are not currently taking medication for your depression. Actually, that's your first mistake. Second is seeing a therapist. Psychiatrist, therapist. Very, very important things to include in your life if you have a mental illness. I typically would go for number 2. Reluctantly sit down at your desk and try to make yourself do something. Because Lord knows I haven't done YouTube video editing in a long time. Actually, I had a series of reaction videos that I was going to work on. The first one was to Tetsuo the Iron Man, which is a fucking weird-ass movie. And it would have been a great reaction video, but, again, editing just fucking sucks. You make a stop at your fridge, turn your favorite playlist on and sit down to start working. You open the last file you were working on, and as soon as your hands touch the keyboard, your mind goes blank. All of the motivation and ideas you had when you arrived home vanish in a flash. Your brain seizes up and you find yourself physically incapable of any sort of productive thought. You take a break to loosen up, popping into your email inbox, Twitter, and various other internet-based distraction fodder. Frustratingly, this pattern continues throughout the course of the evening. As soon as you try and focus on work, your brain diverts all its energy away from the task at hand. While you keep flipping back to your work, you find the sheer mental effort involved in keeping your brain focused is overwhelming and tiring. A few Twitter arguments, YouTube videos, and sparse amounts of actual work later, your playlist flips back to track 1 and the ice in your glass has all but melted, diluting the last dregs of the Coke you were nursing. I don't drink soda. I mean, that's kind of an inane thing to mention, but hey. You look at this clock and realize that a few hours have passed since you sat down to work, and you've made negligible progress. I could just wake up early tomorrow and catch up, you think to yourself as you climb into bed, even though you know that never actually happens. You are very depressed. You spend a large amount of time sleeping, hating yourself, and have very little energy or motivation. You are not currently seeing a therapist. You are not currently taking medication for depression. It's a mild Friday afternoon. Alex calls you from one of her classes telling you that there's going to be a really awesome birthday party tonight at her apartment that one of her roommates is throwing. You've hung out with this roommate a few times with Alex, and you get along well enough, but aren't particularly close. You don't have work in the morning and have nothing else in particular to do tonight. You are feeling kind of run down, but you have been fatigued most of the time lately. You mention that you're feeling ill because you're not sure how else to explain those feelings to someone else, and say that you aren't sure that you can make it tonight. There's a second of silence over your phone, but you can swear you can hear the sound of your partner's face fall. She tries to convince you anyway. You haven't seen her this week, and she sounds pretty insistent that you come over. She even drops a few suggestively worded hints that you can stay over with them tonight after the party. What do you do? I would agree to go. Because, there's somebody that I really care about that's really wanting to see me, and if anything, I would want to do it for her sake. You agreed to go even though you're really not feeling social. You know it's important to Alex and you'd really like to see her. Seeing her does make you feel better sometimes, and you hope that this is the case tonight, even if it does mean dealing with all the usual social anxiety. The time to leave rolls around and you grab your overnight bag. Alex's apartment is a short walk away, and there are already people hanging out on the porch. You feel your chest tighten as you approach the building and try to steel your nerves. You quickly find your partner chatting away with the birthday girl, and Alex immediately lightens up when she sees you. I'm so happy you came. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it. A young man taps her on the shoulder, and she turns back to you to apologize and let you know that they have to do something for the party. Alex hands you a beer and plants a kiss on your cheek before going off to deal with whatever came up. As you look around, you don't see anyone else you recognize. Oh, ouch. That would be, turmoil for me. Well, inwardly turmoil. Inward turmoil. Jesus. Awkwardly stand in the same spot. Unsure of what to do, put your bag in Alex's room and avoid the crowd in there for a while, cling to the back wall, sip your beer, and waiting for your girlfriend to return. Proceed to drink in earnest, hoping it makes you less uncomfortable. It used to be that in college or high school, even in high school, I went to a couple of parties, but I had social anxiety even still. I would basically do the awkwardly stand in the same spot, unsure of what else to do thing, and occasionally chat to people that I know, but there's nobody that I know here, so that's not an option. These days, I guess not as much anymore. Maybe a couple months ago, I would proceed to drink in earnest, but I'm getting better at my drinking, I say, as this is my second drink of the night. I don't want to drink, though, because if you get intoxicated and you're depressed and you're not in the right state of mind, then getting drunk is just going to make things even worse. So I'm going to awkwardly stand in the same spot, unsure of what else to do, because that's kind of what I would do. Actually, more likely I would do this. Try to play it off cool. I was a good actor in high school. As Alex leaves, you are not quite sure what to do with yourself. Standing in the middle of the room leaves you feeling kind of exposed, and you don't feel ballsy enough to randomly approach any of the groups of people clustered around together talking. You head to a clear spot on the back wall and lean against it. For some reason, this always feels a lot more secure. You scan the party for a familiar face or any sign of your partner and come up with nothing. Not sure what else to do and worrying that you must look creepy just standing there watching everyone, you take out your phone to busy yourself. 20 semi-tedious games of Bejeweled Blitz later, your partner returns. You spend the rest of the night with Alex, occasionally being introduced to people and nodding along with group conversations, even if you don't participate that much. Yeah, I can definitely empathize. At the end of the night, as you're falling asleep with your girlfriend in the crook of your arm, she thanks you again for coming. Half drunk, she confides that she thought you were going to flake out and was pleasantly surprised that you managed to come out. She says it lovingly, but you're not quite sure how you feel about that statement. It's a little afternoon on a muggy Saturday. Your mother has come over for a surprise visit, claiming loudly that she doesn't see you enough and she decided to invite herself over. As you converse, my mother would never do that. Mainly because she realizes that, I need notification before any big things happen. She also lives in another state right now, so she couldn't do that if she tried. As you converse, she walks around your place, and you get this distinct impression that you're being inspected. So what's going on with you lately? She asks abruptly. Taken somewhat aback by this left fielder, you tell her that you're not sure what she means. She repeats the question, saying you haven't seemed like yourself lately. She gestures to the dirty dishes piled in the sink, and notes the fact that you haven't called or visited in a while. Your reticence only seems to spur her on more. She presses you, asking if you're having problems at work or with Alex. And you're beginning to feel increasingly battered by her sudden, well-meaning but overwhelming inquisition. Under her questions, you become increasingly uncomfortable. You want to be able to explain to her how you've been feeling, but the truth is you're not really sure yourself. Nothing horrific has happened at work, or with your significant other, or friends, or anything like that. But all the same, you can't deny that lately you've just felt drained and as though you're not really here. I can understand that. I've experienced similar feelings in the past. You wish you could tell your mother these things, but she hasn't been approachable about negative emotions in the past. She's the kind of person who holds the opinion that the solution to any problem is to simply try harder and maintain a positive attitude, a stance that has reared its head in past conversations when you've begun to explore the subject with her. You know she's likely to be understanding, and you feel the energy drain out of you when you imagine what would happen if you managed to blurt out everything you are feeling. What do you do? The option that's blocked out this time is let her know that you've been feeling down lately and that you appreciate your concern. The healthy option is always the one that you can't do. Try to be honest with her anyway, tell her that everything is fine, and thank her for asking, change the subject. Fucking be honest with her. Why not? I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that she disowns you. You attempt to tell your mother how you're feeling despite initial misgivings that you have about doing so. Finding the right words for how you're feeling feels like trying to untangle Christmas lights, searching for the dead bulb in the cluttered mess. She watches you intently and audibly sighs before you can clearly articulate anything. Unfortunately, she reacts predictably. An attitude like that won't get you anywhere. You need to work harder at getting what you want instead of sitting around feeling sad about it. Oh, fuck you, Mom. She isn't angry or spiteful as she tells you this. You try to explain that it's not a matter of that, but you can tell that you're not getting anywhere. The frustration chokes the words in your throat and you give up on trying to push the subject further. You know she's giving you the advice that makes sense to her, and genuinely wants the best for you. However, she doesn't understand that it's not as simple as somehow deciding to be positive or work harder. It's that those things aren't viable options because of these feelings. You accept your defeat, and conversation drifts on to other subjects. She leaves after chiding you to call her more often and take better care of yourself. You sigh heavily as you close the door behind her. You sigh heavily as you close the door behind her, spend the next few hours laying in bed, staring at the ceiling. That was a weird sentence. It is a lazy Sunday morning. You are idly clicking around online as your phone rings. Sam, a coworker of yours that you're friendly with, I can talk, asks how you are and makes hurried small talk with you. You typically only ever talk to him on the phone when one of you needs a shift covered, so it's slightly awkward. You're waiting in anticipation for him to ask you to come in on short notice when he veers the conversation in a completely different direction. How do you feel about cats? He asks. Mine had kittens a few weeks ago, and I'm having an awfully hard time finding a home for the last one of the litter. You don't have any pets, right? It takes you a moment to process this new information, and you're caught off guard as he begins earnestly to try to sell you on the idea of taking the last kitten off his hands. It's not something that you had specifically considered before, and he seems fairly insistent. She's a real sweetheart, really loves people. She's got all of her shots already taken care of, and the vet said that she's healthy as a horse. I can bring her over by your place tonight if you're interested. You look around your apartment and try to picture a cat in it as he continues to tell you about how cute she is. You tell him that this is all kind of sudden and that you don't have anything for the kitten set up here. Oh, don't worry about that. I can bring over a litter box and food and all that since you'd really be helping me out of a fix. It's the least I could do. It's just, I just don't want to have to put her in a shelter. You can't help but feel like you're being guilt-tripped, but you decide to give it some serious consideration. It does get awfully lonely around your apartment. What the fuck? Sorry, my phone. And it might feel less empty with a cat around. However, since you've been feeling so down, it might not be a good idea to take on the responsibility of a cat, even if they are fairly low maintenance. What do? Can't take the cat, knowing full well that you can take great care of it. Can't decline, even though you'd be totally capable of taking care of it. You're not much of a cat person. Become a cat owner. You could use the companionship. Decline. You're not in a good enough place to be taking on more responsibility right now. I mean, that's for a guy that's this, down. I would say this, because you don't want to take a pet is a big responsibility. I would not, and that's why I don't have a dog. Despite the fact that I love dogs, I absolutely love them. They're my favorite things on the planet. I don't have a dog because I know that I don't have, the means or the time or whatever to give them the type of life that they deserve. So I don't have a dog. As much as I would love one, as much as I want one, I don't have a dog because of exactly this. So I'm going to decline. I'm sorry, I just can't right now. I hope you find a good home for her. You sit through a few more sales pitch statements that border on guilt trips and rebut them with fabricated excuses about your landlord not allowing pets before your coworker gives up and thanks you anyway. You wish him luck in finding a home for her, and as you hang up, you feel pangs of guilt as you imagine him having to put her in a shelter. You wonder if the chance of the kitten ending up in a shelter was worse than the chance of you being unable to care for an animal, and you feel pretty awful about yourself regardless. Yeah. Your apartment's emptiness feels a lot more palpable suddenly, and you wonder if you could have pulled it off. You consider getting a pet in the future after more careful consideration and preparation. The next day at work, you run into your coworker and breathe a sigh of relief as he informs you that he was able to find a good home for the kitten. She's probably way better off than she would be with me, you think. Exactly. It's late Friday afternoon, and quitting time is just around the corner. A bright, clear day is giving way to a still, temperate evening. You can hear your coworkers all around you anxiously making plans for their evenings and weekends, but you're really looking forward to just going home and resting after what's turned out to be a very long and taxing work week. Just before the end of your shift, you get a call from Alex. It seems a group of your mutual friends are heading out to a nearby pub for dinner and drinks to celebrate the end of the week, and they want to know if you'd like to come along. You tentatively tell her that you're emotionally exhausted from the work week, and a social outing like that would just take too much out of you for today. You encourage her to go and have a good time, since you know it's been a while since she's gone out with friends, but the effort feels futile since you know that she isn't going to go without you. A couple hours later, the two of you find yourselves in a familiar position. On the couch, watching comedy shows on Netflix, a box of pizza open on the coffee table in front of you. As you look across the couch at her, you start to feel anxious. You feel bad about effectively forcing the two of you to stay in tonight again. While you are always appreciative of your partner's efforts to take your feelings into account and help make sure you're socially comfortable, you sincerely worry that you're holding her back from enjoying a more fulfilling relationship. While she does seem to enjoy spending time with you, as the two of you sit in comfortable, almost contented silence, watching old shows you've seen 2 or 3 times before, your ever-increasing fear that your relationship is becoming one-sided weighs more and more heavily on you. You feel more than ever like a burden, or a ward to her, and it's virtually impossible for you to see what value you could possibly offer to her in return. Worst of all, this nagging fear has made you feel more self-conscious than ever, withdrawing ever inwards, and you've started to pull away even from Alex herself. What do you do? So, what we can't do is, despite the bad times, your girlfriend sincerely loves you, relationships are a two-way street, and you resolve to always be there for her like she has been for you. Of course we can't do that. The healthy option is always not available. Tell Alex how important she is to you and enjoy your evening. Can't do that. What we can do is ask Alex if she's happy with your relationship. Or don't say anything, you're already worried about her being upset with you. Wow, this is tough. It seems like it's blocking more and more options. I feel like this is going to go in a very bad place. Asking if she's happy with a relationship, that would be... I don't know, that seems like it would be putting her on the spot. Like, a better option would be just to try harder. I mean, then again, that's what his mom said. so that's kind of bad advice. But, hey, Stinky Boy! Is your name supposed to be Direct Dick? No. It's actually Direct DYD. I know you're joking, but to explain my name for people who don't know it, it's Direct DYDX. DYDX is the double integral. It's a math joke, basically. I used to be really into math and like calculus and stuff, and yeah, those days are long gone. But when I came up with this username, that's what it was, a math joke. But Stinky Boy, how you doing? It's good to see you in chat. I'm just not gonna say anything because this guy seems like he's on a downward spiral anyway, and it's kind of interesting to see where it goes from here. That sounds morbid. Mulek. Bro, I will go to sleep right now because for me it's 22:50. Goodbye. Nah, no problem. No problem at all. I hope you have a good night's rest. Sail Amulek. Whatever that means. Good on you. Thank you for stopping by and saying hi. Yep. Stinky Boy, how you doing? This is far from the first time you would have had this conversation with her, and it's one that plays out the same way every time. You explain your fears of being worthless, she tries to tell you that she doesn't see you that way, you insist that she is biased or just being nice to you because she's your girlfriend, and she gets frustrated. It never resolves, nothing new is ever said, and rarely do you feel reassured by it. Occasionally, she tries to broach the subject, trying to discover why you feel like this about yourself. This always makes you feel nervous. You're sometimes convinced that the only reason she's still with you is because she doesn't know how awful you really are. As time has gone on, you've gotten more comfortable trying to express bits and pieces of your insecurities to her, but it still causes you to feel very on guard, and it's not a conversation you can have for too long without worrying you're going to scare her away. Oh yeah, 10:50, that's pretty late. The weight of an unspoken, unresolved issue in your relationship joins you in the room for a little while, but you dare not pick at it for the rest of the night. It is a breezy Sunday afternoon. You followed Amanda, an old friend from school that is in town for the weekend, to talk you into leaving the house for coffee and catch up. You meet her in a small cafe and talk about what you've been up to since you've last seen each other, and you can't help but feel like they are a lot more accomplished and interesting than you are while listening to them talk about their life after school. Yep, I can definitely relate to that. When it's your turn to brief them on your activities, you feel anxious and ashamed and give a very abbreviated version. You try to talk about your job as little as possible, and you feel incredibly boring while you describe it despite her expressing sincere interest in you and your life. Amanda has known you long enough to read your mood and tone of voice. She leans in to ask a question while gently touching your hand, a look of genuine concern on her face. What's wrong? Do you not suggest a change of location and confide in her honestly, not test the waters and open up a little, hoping she'll understand, but instead insist that nothing is wrong and change the subject, defensively ask what she means by that, notice that your hands are shaking. Honestly, these two are just dick moves, in my opinion. Notice that your hands are shaking. It's such a small question, because at least he's being aware, he's being more aware of himself and stuff. At least, maybe that could be a stepping stone in order to actually taking action to open up and communicate. If he just realizes that, like, in a meta sense, that there is a serious problem, and he needs some type of help, whether it's just opening up to a friend or whatever. It's such a small question, but it feels like a blow to the gut. You surprise yourself when you realize that your tightly clenched fists are now beginning to shake slightly. Despite your best efforts, you feel tears begin to sting at your eyes. You try to disguise this by tilting your head up and praying that they'll suck back in. She suggests that you two get out of there, and you feel mortified. She offers to go back to your apartment with you, but the two of you end up talking in her car for 2 hours as the words just pour forth from you. Amanda seems unsure of what to say at times, but she listens and rubs your back as you sob and talk. She asks if you've gone to a doctor about this, and you admit that you haven't. She mentions that her mother is seeing a very good therapist in town and offers to ask her about it. You're not thrilled about the idea of going to a therapist, of course, and even less thrilled that Amanda might be telling someone about your problems, but she persists and tells you she'll email you the doctor's contact information later in the week. You are deeply depressed. Even activities you used to enjoy hold little or no self-interest for you, or little or no interest for you, and you exist in a near constant state of lethargy. Not currently seeing a therapist, not currently taking meds. It's a glaringly sunny Monday, and one of the few days that your brother Malcolm is in town and free long enough for you two to actually see each other. You have a dental appointment that day, but you make plans for him to pick you up afterward. Your appointment takes a little longer than expected because your dentist tells you that you've started grinding your teeth in your sleep to a worrying degree. Given how nearly everything in your life has been feeling enormous and stressful lately, this doesn't come as a surprise to you. He suggests that you try to reduce your stress levels and fits you for a night guard. It feels awkward and too big for your mouth, and you feel embarrassed looking at your puffed out face in the mirror with it. You finish up the appointment in a hurry and leave about a half an hour overdue for a meeting your always punctual an hour and a half overdue for meeting your always punctual brother in the parking lot. You finish up as quickly as possible and leave the building to scan the parking lot for your brother's car, but you don't see his old Civic anywhere. You pass by a blue Camaro and jump as it beeps at you, causing you to jump in surprise. What? Okay, we jumped twice. It takes you a moment for it to realize it, but it's Malcolm in the driver's seat. You hop in the passenger seat and compliment him on his new ride, and he mentions that it's a perk of a promotion he's recently obtained at work. He starts telling you about how much more money he's making, how his career is really taking off, and how he's starting to look at houses with his wife soon. I'm a millennial. I can't afford property, because cost of living has gone way above wage increases, so I'm kind of fucked. Thank you, previous generations. You clutch the bag containing the night guard in your hand and feel yourself clench your teeth as you think of your crummy apartment and how long it's been since you've been able to take a day off work without having to worry about making ends meet. He's only 2 years older than you, but it feels like he's eons ahead of you in every other aspect of your lives. So, he asks, how did your appointment go? Did you get drilled full of holes or what? A sense of shame creeps over you. We cannot laugh about your dorky night guard with your brother. Tell him about the night guard and why you need it. But we can lie and tell him it was routine cleaning, or tell him about your tooth grinding problem, but not the stress causing it. I don't like to lie. I guess tell him about your tooth grinding problem. The dentist said I'm apparently grinding my teeth too much when I sleep. Oh, Malcolm replies. Been stressed out lately, kiddo? Deciding that you don't really want to go into it, you tell him that you don't think that's the case and it's probably just a random thing. He doesn't pry further and instead begins reminiscing with you about the time you chipped a baby tooth because he accidentally knocked you over once. You go out for dinner and catch up on things, but you still feel somewhat distracted by the gnawing anxiety in the back of your mind. Though you enjoy your brother's company, you still feel like you want nothing more than to go home and hide from the world tonight. It becomes hard for you to try to stuff all of your horrible feelings down and go emotionless when someone like the dentist can see a fraction of what goes on inside your head. It leaves you feeling embarrassed and weak, and you hate yourself for feeling that way. You wonder if you're really fooling anyone into thinking you're a normal person, and then you wonder if your brother knows and is hanging out with you out of pity tonight. After he drops you back off at your apartment, you throw the night guard out. You can't stand to even look at the thing. What? Why? I mean, that's just good health. Alright, that's like the first thing in this game that I wouldn't understand. Like, dude, do you have any idea how expensive, like, dental work is? Dude. It's a dry Sunday morning. You grab your morning coffee and sit down at your desk to check your email. A new message pops up in your inbox almost as soon as you do. It's from Amanda, and you remember your meeting in the cafe and awkwardly bring up your feelings to her. Subject, hey buddy. Body, hey, sorry it's been a few weeks. I meant to get this to you sooner, but it took a while for me to get a hold of my folks back home. Dad told me to say hi, by the way. Anyway, I remembered what we talked about last time I saw you, and I hope you aren't insulted, but I asked my mom for the number of a therapist. Don't worry, I didn't tell her who it was for. I think she's worried about me now, though. Haha. Anyway, the number is bleh. It's a really good office. You should look into it. Talking to someone never hurts. If you're worried about money, don't be. They're one of the few that has really good sliding scale fee system and won't charge you for what you can't afford. I hope you're feeling better. It was really nice to see you again. Oh, that's nice. It's still early enough that you could call and make an appointment today. What do you do? Of course we can't call the therapist's number. We can't try your luck and call the number. But we can sleep on it and see how well you're feeling in the morning. You're not keen on the idea at all, but you don't want to disappoint Amanda, or close the email without thinking more of it. This has become embarrassing enough already. God damn it. Yep, see, this is the whole self-destructive thing that kind of spirals out of control. The best thing that he could possibly do is to seek help right now, but his depression is basically making it very difficult to do that. Not impossible, but very difficult. I mean, in this instance, it's impossible because they're literally blocking out these choices. But, yeah. At least sleep on it. The thought of picking up the phone and calling someone about this right now is overwhelming. Sure, you're having a hard time lately and have motivation issues, but are you really in need of therapy? Shouldn't you be able to just get it over it yourself? What if they put you on medication that makes you feel like a zombie? What if you go and the therapist looks down on you? What will Alex think about this? Trying to think about all these things at once makes it feel like a very big deal, and you decide to take your time to think on it. The rest of the day passes quickly, and that night you have a hard time trying to sleep because your brain is too busy thinking about all these things and imagining all of the ways it could go horribly wrong. The next morning, you check your email again with blurry eyes. Amanda's email is still there, seemingly waiting for you. You are no more decided than you were yesterday. What now? I can't just call already. I can call after wrestling with it a few minutes longer, or I can not call. This is what blah, 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 blah. Call! Jesus! You read through Amanda's email 2 or 3 times, then sit and stare at your computer for a while. While the memory of that uncomfortable conversation makes you feel newly embarrassed and self-conscious, part of you is also encouraged by the fact that she cared enough to get back to you at all. Sitting in front of your computer, you start to question things like whether or not Amanda sent you this number out of pity, or perhaps some sense of obligation after having listened to you. You question her motives and the validity of her concern, and whether or not you think seeing a therapist would even be helpful. It's understandable. I mean, people who haven't gone to therapy before have a typically really negative opinion of it, mainly because popular media tends to portray it as something that only people who are disturbed go to it, or, whatever. There's not a lot of really positive portrayals of therapy or psychotherapy or psychiatry or whatever in the media, at least as far as I know. I mean, even in GTA 5, the therapist is played off as a joke, which is really sad. But, I mean, it's GTA 5. Yet, almost unconsciously, you reach for your phone, and before you realize what's happening, you're listening to the therapist's line ring. Before you can bring yourself to hang up, you're listening to the slightly clinical but not unpleasant voice of the receptionist ask how she can help you. I'd like to make an appointment with the doctor, you manage to stammer out. The conversation is quick and not nearly as unpleasant as you were fearing, and quicker than you can say Freudian slip, you've scheduled an appointment. Quicker than you realize, appointment day rolls around. What do you do? I can't just go to the therapist's office, of course. I can head to the therapist's office even though you're totally unsure of what to expect. Sit in your car, terrified, and try to talk yourself into and out of going. Or, just the thought of going to your appointment ties your stomach in knots. You crawl back into bed. I have a feeling that if I, pick all the bad options, that this is going to end in suicide. Which I'm not really in the mood to deal with at the moment. So we're going to head to the therapist's office, even though I'm totally unsure of what to expect. You have your first session with your new therapist, Dr. Susan Melville, a tall woman in her mid-40s with a disarming demeanor and patient eyes with the start of the slightest of smile lines. She makes you feel comfortable fairly easily, which is a pleasant surprise after all your anxiety over the appointment. As you leave, you make a second appointment. You're still skeptical about all this, but figure you might as well see where this goes. The hardest part, it seems, was taking the first step. That is absolutely true. Like, actually taking the first step to go into psychiatry or psychotherapy or anything, any type of treatment, is the most difficult part of seeking help. You're still not sure if and how you're going to tell your family or your partner, but you figure you'll deal with that when the time comes. Either way, you feel relieved that you managed to see this through instead of being paralyzed with worry over it. Even if nothing comes of it, you did something that you said you would instead of flaking out or running away. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home. You just got out of your good Warzone game. Oh, cool. What happened? Your team almost won. Nice. Almost winning is good. You're emotionally exhausted when you get home and collapse into bed. You sleep better that night than you have in a week, and you're not sure if it's because you were so tired when you got home or if it's because of the therapist. You're very depressed, yada. Oh, we're getting better, I think. You spend a large amount of time sleeping, hating yourself, and have very little energy or motivation. I think that's better. You spent some time on a therapist's couch. You're having difficulty finding the motivation to continue going to your sessions. It is early on a Wednesday morning. Did you have any more weird glitches with the STG-44 that apparently had like a trash bag up here whenever you tried to aim with it? That sounded hilarious. It is early on a Wednesday morning. Lately, you've developed a nasty habit of waking up 10 to 20 minutes before your alarm rings, and unfortunately, today is no exception. You lay in bed, each minute ticking closer and closer to wake-up time, and passing on a swelling wave of ever-encroaching dread. Sooner than you would like, your alarm blares with caustic inevitability. You frantically pound the snooze button and then retreat under your blankets, as if the warmth of your comforter can shield you from the passage of time. Oh yes, LMAO in my chat is a command for levity moistens all orifices. I forgot about that. Oh, so it actually worked this time. That's good. It's good to know. I mean, it's kind of important to have, sites that work when you're in a first-person shooter. You almost always have difficulty rising from bed, but today that simple task seems nothing short of Herculean. After several snooze cycles, you decide that you just can't deal with work today. You're incapable of even rousing yourself from bed, let alone going into work and having to force yourself through a workday. Not to mention, you've snoozed so many times that it would be impossible to make it in on time now anyways. What do? We cannot hop out of bed and start getting ready for work. You'll be late, but it's better than not going in at all. We can head into work. At least you can leave early if it gets too unbearable. Or call your boss to tell him you're sick and won't be in today. I mean, I don't like playing hooky, so I would probably do this even if it was a total pain in the ass. Like, the only times I would actually be sick is if there was, like, something seriously, really seriously bad going on. But yeah, I mean, he's having a serious episode, but it's not to the point where I would, take work off. In spite of the fact that your body is actively fighting you literally every step of the way, you somehow manage to drag yourself out of bed and make your way back into work. Surprisingly, you end up only being about 5 minutes late, and nobody seems to notice or care. Though when you woke up to the simple act of being even physically present at your job seemed like an impossibility. Though you are surprised at your own ability to push through the day. Oh, that's good. Good on you, man. While you are far from enjoying or indeed even really coping with the dullness of your job today, you seem to have slipped into a trance-like state of automation, and time is nevertheless passing. Eventually, the end of the day rolls around and you head home, utterly exhausted, but at the same time almost proud of yourself for having stuck it out. We are You are depressed. Interaction is exhausting and you are becoming more and more withdrawn. However, that seems like it's a much more improved state than before. You are seeing a therapist even though you doubt anything she says can make you feel better. Not currently taking medication. It's 2 a.m. on a Sunday and you have work in the morning. Well, that sucks. You roll over to see the sickly green glow of the time displayed on your LED alarm clock and let out an exasperated sigh. You've been trying to fall asleep for over 3 hours now to no avail. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Yeah, that's one thing that people don't understand, or some people don't understand, is that just because you're depressed doesn't mean you sleep a lot. In fact, a lot of times, depression leads to a lack of sleep. Even if you have no energy to actually go out and do things, you don't fall asleep very easily. At least in my experience, you don't fall asleep when you need to. You fall asleep when you don't need to. But yeah, it sucks. Every time your head hits the pillow, you're overcome with anxious thoughts that wrap themselves around each other. Worries about your job lead to worries about your future, lead to worries about your very identity, and you're unable to shake them off long enough to doze off. Your eyes won't even stay shut as your mind races through imagined scenarios going horribly wrong, which you promptly attribute to your general worthlessness. Your thoughts run too fast for you to come to a satisfying conclusion on any one of them. Your room is completely silent, but the silence has given way to a loud static noise rattling around inside your head. Your heart beats loudly and you worry it's beating a little too fast. You worry that if you focus too strongly on your racing heart, you'll freak yourself out hard enough that you have a heart attack. You have to be awake for work in a mere 8 hours, and you know that your work is so much worse on only a few hours sleep. What do you do? Played 2 Call of Duty games, which are basically linked. Which Call of Duty games are those? Are you talking about 2 separate, Okay, so the Warzone one with STG-44 is a battle royale. Cool. And Cold War is multiplayer. Oh, okay. So you're doing Warzone and Cold War. Interesting. Yeah, I thought that was... yeah, I was wondering where the STG-44 comes in, because that's the precursor to the AK-47, right? It's the German gun, I think. Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. What do I do? I can't force myself to go to sleep, go to bed. I can't just close my eyes and let it happen. I can't snap out of it. And I can... wow. You're probably going to go into work tomorrow exhausted and fuck everything up and get fired. Oh, Jesus. I can go to my computer. Sleep is clearly not happening no matter how long you lay here. I mean, that's actually a kind of okay thing to do in this instance. If sleep is literally impossible, sometimes the best thing to do is actually to do something else until you're tired enough to go to sleep. I mean, it sucks because you still lose a lot of sleep hours, but it's better than just tossing and turning that night. So right now, New Vanguard came out not long ago, so right now the Warzone has only Vanguard weapons, and Cold War has Black Ops weapons since it's Black Ops. Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not familiar with how the Call of Duty games go. I actually do remember I played the first 2 Call of Duty games. Or maybe just the first one. The very first one that took place in World War II. And that's the only one that I seriously played. I played one of the Modern Warfare games with a friend, but I got my ass kicked. You get out of bed and head to your desk. Laying in bed with nothing but your thoughts to keep you company makes you feel like you're going insane. The harshness of the light coming from the screen makes you squint as you turn it on, despite how often you find yourself in this exact situation. There have been so many nights lately just like this. As you begin reading a news story, an online friend of yours IMs you. Oh man. Reading the news is just fucking depressing these days. No matter what, no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, you're gonna find something that's gonna upset you. It's just terrible all around. Blah. Anyway, an online friend of yours IMs you. You're up late again, I see. You respond, yeah, can't sleep again. They say, thinking too much again? Thinking. Too much again? Thinking. I respond, you guessed it. Sad face. They say, want to talk about it? You end up talking with Attic for quite some time about how you've been feeling. He's always been easy to talk to about personal matters, and the added security of talking online helps. Being able to rethink what you say as you type it out and check it before you send it helps you gather your thoughts. Yeah, that only sometimes helps me, because sometimes I just belt that shit out without any concern for how it sounds. Sometimes I'm good with checking what I say before I send it. Oh my god, my Reddit history is terrible. You didn't hear that. Don't look at my Reddit history. Blah blah blah. Yes, Attic. He says, I don't want to be that guy who thinks they can diagnose someone because I read a Wikipedia article, but it kind of sounds like you might have depression. You should talk to somebody about that, like a doctor. You pause. Are you really that transparent? What does it fucking matter? Or is it that you've gotten used to talking about your feelings at this point? Your insomnia makes you a little paranoid, but you shake it off. He says, we could do some research and see if there's a good doctor near you. It's not like you're going back to sleep anytime soon anyway. Might as well do something while you're awake. Smiley face. I cannot say, this is just a low night, I'm normally able to sleep and I don't have depression, but thank you for your concern. Good! That's a good thing, it's not denial. And you know what? I'm going to tell the truth and say, actually, I have talked to somebody about it. Attic says, oh, okay. I'm glad you're taking that step. I've heard it's not an easy one. True. I know people kind of suck at understanding this kind of stuff sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with having depression. You wouldn't be ashamed to have bronchitis or something, so there's no reason to be ashamed if it's your brain that's sick instead. That's a perfectly healthy and reasonable way to look at the situation, and in fact, the type of way I encourage every single person with a mental illness to look at it. Like, yeah, you can have any type of physical illness in the world and you're not going to get judged for it. But as soon as you get a mental illness, suddenly it's this big taboo thing, and that's just stupid. Don't think of it like that. Think of it as just part of your health. Physical health, mental health, they're one and the same, basically. I mean, they're obviously different because they have different implications and treatment methods and yada 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 yada. But the end point is the same, in that you have something wrong that you need to get help with. So yeah. Rumor has it 91. Hey, buddy, how you doing? I am playing Depression Quest. I have this thing called Mental Mondays, which I haven't done in a while. And in fact, every single time I have a Mental Monday, I have a hiatus. But that's besides the point. I have this thing called Mental Monday where I play a game that is centered around mental illness, because I have bipolar disorder, and the reason why I started streaming was to raise awareness of bipolar disorder and other types of mental illnesses. So right now we're playing Depression Quest, which is a very well-known game about depression. So that's what we're doing today. But thank you for stopping by, and good to see you. Where was I? You spend a few more minutes talking with Attic about your therapy and your feelings about it. He's incredibly supportive, and you're happy to find that you have a confidant that understands your illness and is willing to lend an ear when you're having nights like this. A little while later, you fall back into bed and find it easier to drift off to sleep. Even in therapy, you know that you're still going to have nights like these sometimes. It's good to know that you have a friend who will help carry you through them. Oh, you have bipolar too? Yeah, that's the variant that I have as well. Hey, you know what? You are awesome too. It's really good to see you, and I'm really grateful that you stopped by to chat. That's really nice. It's always great to see people in chat, so thank you. Sincerely. Your depressed interaction is exhausting, with becoming more and more withdrawn, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, all this has not changed. It's a chilly Thursday night, and you've just gotten off work. This has felt like one of the longest days you've faced in recent memory. Even though nothing exceptional had happened, a ton of minor things kept going wrong, and coworkers had tried your patience throughout the day. You considered leaving work early, but the last thing you wanted to do was deal with your insufferable boss on top of everything else. Yeah, that's another thing that I can't relate with, because my boss is awesome. I mean, I'm really lucky in the fact that I have a good job and a good boss, so yeah. I can relate with a lot of stuff that's going on in this game, but unfortunately there's some stuff that is way worse. You're lost in thought on the commute home, and your feelings of frustration both with your life and the world around you builds as you run into minor annoyances, like someone bumping into you really hard as they walk by. By the time you get home, you're exhausted, and remember that these feelings were ones you identified as a negative feedback loop with your therapist. These pent-up feelings aren't dying down and are eating at you. You open your front door and stare at your apartment. An overwhelming feeling of exhaustion overcomes you, and you feel like your energy levels are low enough that you'll likely settle into single activities tonight. What do? I cannot just shake off my bad mood and do something fun for the rest of the evening. I can try to reach out to someone close to you, or don't burden anyone with your problems. Distract yourself. Nope. Most healthy thing to do. I mean, I'm approaching this as somebody who wants to actually get better. And even though, like, back in the day, before I was actually seeking help, I probably would have done this. I really want, whoever this guy is, I want them to get better. And I would want to get better if I was in their shoes. And, we're already starting to see a therapist. That's one step that we've taken. That's good. The next step would be a psychiatrist for medication help. But yeah, reach out to someone close to you. That's the best thing you can do. Usually, depending on how well they handle it. Your head feels too noisy and you need to trade it for some actual conversation. Your therapist did say that it was important to reach out to your support network, so you might as well give it a shot. Who do you call? I cannot call my coworker Sam. He's friendly enough. It could be just a good distraction. I mean, he tried to sell you a kitten and tried to guilt trip you into getting a kitten. Fuck him. Your mother, she unconditionally loves you, even if she doesn't always understand you. Nope. Alex, she's my girlfriend. Malcolm, he's family and fun to talk to. Wow. I would have chosen, Amanda? Or the dude online. Man, this is not really good options. Because we already know what the mom's going to say. Malcolm would absolutely not... Well, we don't know that. I mean, he seems kind of aloof and, not really capable of understanding the position that we're in, but we don't know that exactly because we never actually tried to talk with him about this. I think maybe burdening Alex with it would be a little bit too much, because she already has to deal a lot. I mean, that's self-loathing and other types of things talking, which are unhealthy right now. But let's try Malcolm, because we've never actually tried to do this before. Maybe he's had some issues in the past, and despite the fact that he's hugely successful, maybe he's had to handle his own inner demons. You reach for the phone to call your brother Malcolm, the member of your family who you feel has always understood you best. He always looked out for you when you two were kids, and although you don't see each other much anymore, you are so close with him. The phone rings 3 times before his wife Karen picks up, and she tells you he's away on business right now. Well, fuck! You redial his cell phone, and it goes straight to voicemail. Well, fuck! Feeling defeated, you hang up and lay in bed, thoughts gnawing at you as you do. You feel selfish for trying to reach out to him while he's busy in the first place. He's always so busy, and he's an important person to so many people. You, on the other hand, are laying on your bed in a crappy apartment feeling sorry for yourself. Your thoughts turn to how, if you were just to vanish, you feel like no one would notice for days, and when you did, there wouldn't be too many negative consequences for anyone. You're not in charge of anything important, you're distant from your friends, so who would even notice? That's an extremely unhealthy attitude to have, and one that I've had many times. So yeah, go me. Your thoughts are interrupted by your phone ringing next to your head. It's Malcolm. Hey kiddo, I'm sorry I missed your call. I was in a tunnel on the way back to my hotel. How's it going? He enthusiastically greets you. Woof. Through a series of exchanges between the two of you, you end up actually opening up to your brother about your condition and how you've been dealing with it. To your surprise, he's known for a while, but was unsure how to approach you. See? There we go. That's awesome. He wanted to give you space to figure it out and didn't want to put more stress on you the way your parents do. The two of you talk on the phone for a good long time, and he provides himself to be an excellent listener and very skilled at finding the perfect times to lighten the mood with a joke without seeming like he's making fun of you or doesn't take your feelings seriously. He reminds you that you can call him anytime you need to let off some steam. Oh, that's so nice. I'm so glad I made the decision. You say your goodbyes and you find that even though you ended up in tears one or two times explaining things, the whole conversation had done a lot to get you into a better headspace. You feel a little less alone knowing you have an ally in dealing with your illness in Malcolm. All that has not changed. It is an utterly nondescript Wednesday afternoon, the type of afternoon that would completely fade from memory unless one made an active effort to preserve it. As has become routine on Wednesdays, you are sitting on the couch in Dr. Melville's office. To your mild surprise, she begins the session by breaking her characteristic therapist's silence and begins speaking up right away. I want to start by saying I think it's great that you decided to come see me. It's an incredibly important first step, she begins. I wanted to take some time today to talk to you about the possibility of supplementing or substituting your treatment with medication. This is so important! Yes! The mention of medication makes your ears perk up and you feel your heart rate increasing. She continues. Many people find adding a pharmacological element to their treatment would be very helpful, and some even prefer to take drugs, completely eliminating their need to visit a therapist at all, provided you rely on your support network and are still reaching out to people. What the fuck? Was I the only one who heard talking? Oh no, there is talking. That's part of the soundtrack. Okay. Okay. I was like, you said the ghost? What? I would prefer it if we kept talking, should you choose to start medication, so that I can monitor your progress and adjust as needed, but the choice is ultimately yours. I just wanted to run the option by you to gauge what your thoughts on the matter might be. Dr. Melville has just given you a lot to think about. What do you do? Holy shit, we actually have no blocked options this time. We can accept a prescription as a way to augment your therapy. I thought she was a therapist, not a psychiatrist. Maybe she's both. Isn't that really rare? I don't know. We can tell her that you'd like to try drugs instead of therapy. We can try the thought of messing with your brain chemicals makes you uneasy. You'll stick with the therapy. This whole therapy thing has always overwhelmed you, and this is the final straw. You're done with both. Now, fuck that. Nope. Except prescription. That's incredibly important. Not the most important thing, obviously, but it is important. You think the matter over long and hard. It's strange to think that recently none of this sort of thing was even on your radar, and here you are now being asked to make a decision about it. You're both skeptical and nervous, still getting over the initial shock of even talking to a therapist. Still, over the years, you've done enough entry-level reading on the subject to know that if it doesn't help at least, it probably won't hurt, right? After an intense and protracted period of internal vacillation, you decide to bite the bullet and go for it. You tell Dr. Melville that you would like to try medication in addition to your therapy, and you spend about half an hour going over what you'll be taking and what you should expect from it. Thinking back on the decision later, you're pretty sure you've had your fists tightly clenched the whole way through. Now, in my experience, therapy and medication have always been separate. Psychiatrists are the ones who have the pharmacological knowledge to actually prescribe medications. Psychotherapists are the ones who do the therapy element. I mean, it's not always psychotherapy. Sometimes it's DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, or CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a whole bunch of different therapies that can be done, but they're typically separate from the medication aspect. But you would want to do a mix of both to have the best part, because there's a part of the illness that is chemical in nature, and that needs to be fixed, first. Well, I mean, maybe not. It's a really complicated subject, okay? Point is, therapy with medication is a lot more effective than just one or the other, typically. At least in my experience. It's a Wednesday evening. Interesting, there's no descriptive word about this. And you're visiting your parents' house for the holiday. It's one of the handful of times during the year you drive out to visit your own old hometown, and you've seen random people you had gone to school with around town. Whenever bumping into them, the usual short versions of what you've done since graduating are exchanged. You've gone through a few of these today and have been very aware of how much you feel you haven't accomplished. When you were in high school, you had much larger plans, and you feel like you've failed to manifest most of them. Even if you had managed to, you've largely lost interest in what you thought you wanted to do growing up. Now you're not really sure what you want to do, and you felt like you're lacking the ambition or drive to figure it out. Everyone you've caught up with seems so much happier than you, like they've got their lives all figured out, and you've kind of been feeling like a failure by comparison. Your brother Malcolm arrives with his wife in tow shortly before you all sit down to dinner. He's been traveling for his job lately, and you haven't seen him since the day he picked you up from the dentist. Your parents haven't seen him since before then. During dinner, they all catch up, and Malcolm talks about the amazing things he's done on the road. Your mother turns to you and asks what you've been up to lately since you've seen them last. God damn it, fuck you, bitch. Oh, same old, you say. Nothing really new going on. Your mother makes a face. Oh, nothing new? How long are you planning on staying at that job of yours? Fuck you! Anyway, I cannot tell them about the exciting new job you're gunning for. I can lie and tell them what they want to hear, that you're actively looking for a more prestigious position. I can admit that I don't know what I want to do, or excuse myself to the bathroom. Be honest. That's what I would do. Fuck her if she's gonna judge you. Actually, you start sheepishly. I'm not really sure what I want to do right now. Your mom pokes down her fork. So what, you're planning on living the way you do for the rest of your life? How would you afford a house on that paycheck? What about the kids? How about fuck you? You dumb bitch. You're not entitled to fucking grandkids, you fucking sack of shit. Sorry. I didn't mean that. I totally meant that. Your father interrupts, lightly placing his hand over your mother's. It's okay, Linda. Let the kids be what they are. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what you want to do in your 20s. I didn't get into construction until I was nearly 40. Your mother looks across the table at you, unsatisfied with her husband's reasoning. I don't think it's normal for someone at that age to not have a path. You need to think hard about it or you'll never make anything of yourself. Mom, come on, Malcolm interjects. This emotionally exhausts you. You want to tell her that you are thinking hard and that not knowing what you're doing with yourself bothers you more than it could ever bother her. That's true. Sometimes it feels like you're lost in the woods, that if you were to drop dead in your apartment, the world wouldn't notice. You want to make her understand that more often than not, you feel like an alien, like there isn't anywhere on this world that feels like a place where you belong, and you have no idea how to fix it or what to do. You wish you could find the words so she would understand that being looked down on for this kills you and drives home the feeling of being a total outsider. Instead, you get very quiet for the rest of the meal while your mind goes numb. Everything inside you feels exhausted. I've started taking medication. You are hoping that it will work, but you aren't optimistic and are worried about the side effects. Okay. So something has changed. It's a rainy night. You are hurrying through the rain to Alex's apartment at her behest. Though your pace is quick, the rain is steadily soaking up your pant legs as you traverse the town, and it's darkening your already poor mood. The call came while you were at home after a day of dealing with abnormally frustrating people. You'd spent the afternoon trying to unwind and get some work on your project done. Alex called and interrupted one of your try to make progress, get frustrated, not making progress, have a harder time making progress due to frustration, repeat loops, and you haven't fully shaken off the feelings of being annoyed with yourself from it just yet. You knock on her door, and on the third knock, hear her voice call from further in the apartment to come in. As you cross the threshold, dripping rainwater all the way, you notice that the lights are turned down very low in the apartment. You squint to navigate it as you clutch onto your damp umbrella, but end up hitting your shin on a side table, mumbling a profanity under your breath. You barely make out Alex emerging from the hallway, clad in what looks to be a robe with the bare skin of her legs peering out underneath. Why don't you come in and warm up? She asks in her designated, slightly cheesy, sexy voice. After a beat of silence, she states more naturally, My roommates are out of town this weekend, so I thought it might be nice to have a little fun while they're away. You appreciate her affection, but you're too wrapped up in your own negative feedback loops to be in the mood right now. I could say something really crass right now, but I'm not going to. Yeah. Suffice to say, if I had a girlfriend like this, yeah, I mean, my depression would be fucking cured. Well, that's not the case. That's being facetious. Point is, yeah. This is something that I find very difficult to relate to because I don't really have anybody in my life to have this type of affection with. Try to unwind with her before it's getting physical, such as you did with them. Tell you not in the mood. Try to unwind with her before getting physical. How about that? You look at her standing barely lit and notice there's a few candles scattered around the apartment. It occurs to you that she's tried to make this night special for the two of you. Even though you have a tight knot of antisocial frustration in your stomach, seeing how much she cares makes you want to try to melt it away so you can show her how much you really care, that she's gone through all this trouble. However, you desperately need to shift gears first before that's even possible. You look amazing. Let's have a drink together, you suggest, hoping that this will give you the push you need to get into the mood. You go into the kitchen and pour the two of you drinks, trying to focus on letting go of your bad mood. You sit down on the couch next to her and she cuddles up to you instantly. What should we toast to? She asks as she takes her drink. You think for a moment, passing up the cheesy to us option. You say what's on your mind. Letting go of your bad day. To tonight. The two of you cheers and you ask her about her day. Conversation turns flirtatious and the two of you find yourselves in the bedroom shortly after. Woo! You find that you're having trouble getting into things physically with her and remember that diminished arousal was a possible side effect of your medication. You'd hope that you were part of the population that would be affected by it, but it seems as though this was not the case. However, you're still able to enjoy closeness with Alice and fall asleep together happily. Good! Dude! Okay. Can I be completely, oh my god, I can't believe I'm about to say this. So, even if your equipment doesn't work, there are other ways to make sure your partner's having a good time, okay? And that's the important part. Like, you guys can have fun without having, just straight sex. There are other ways to get everybody off and feel nice and have a good time. One of the greatest sexual experiences of my life happened when I basically had erectile dysfunction because of my medication. And yet I managed to have one of the best experiences of my life because, guess what? I did other things to make sure that she was having a good time. And she did the same for me. Just find other avenues, man. Don't be too hung up on one thing or another. But that's just me. I mean, other people can have, other perspectives and stuff, and my ice melted. It's an early winter evening, and even though it's not particularly late, the time of year has lent the sky an almost prematurely darkened cast. Day after day, just like today, you trudge home from a job you have increasingly come to hate. On this day, your job misery seems to have reached critical mass, and not even shedding your rain-leaden and uncomfortable work clothes helps you unwind from your workday. You collapse onto your couch. By the way, having issues in bed is a really frustrating and very embarrassing thing to happen. But again, do other stuff. You collapse onto your couch, blank and numb. While your job always seemed to be just to be an unpleasant reality of existence, it was a position you sort of fell into unexpectedly, never intending to work there long term, and it's getting harder and harder to keep it up. While it's certainly not your dream job, you've always just sort of stuck it out of necessity before, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that. Though you couldn't even begin to imagine what else you could do, you find yourself face to face with a question you just can't ignore. Is your complacency worth the price of this level of misery? What do you do? I cannot get proactive, polish off your resume and start looking for other jobs to send feelers out to. I can try and at least be productive by focusing your efforts on the project tonight. Aimlessly look through classifieds for another job. Turn on the TV and let your mind go blank. I mean, when I was having difficulty with my job, I basically aimlessly looked through classifieds. But then again, I also tried to polish up my resume. Yeah, I mean, I guess the best thing to do would be to, I don't know, be miserable. Anyway, you boot up your computer and navigate to the local Craigslist. Oh man, this is before Craigslist went to the shitter. I'm not even going to comment on that. You sift through a myriad of legitimate postings, clear pyramid scans, and the occasional miscategorized random personal ad. You look through the section that is in line with your current job. By the way, Craigslist, awful place to get jobs. In line with your current job, and start feeling a bit of despair. Would things really be any different if you were simply doing the same thing somewhere else? You email your resume to a few of the postings after coming up with a cover letter that you could use for a variety of things. After you've exhausted the postings for the last few days, you head back to the main page. There's a section that's more in line with the project you've been doing, though it's a highly competitive creative field that you don't feel remotely qualified for. Despite that, you click on this section. Scrolling through the postings, you daydream about actually holding a position where you would get to do something more meaningful. Despite feeling completely intimidated by the requirements, you find a listing you actually want to apply for. You spend an hour crafting a really personal cover letter and really giving your all to the task, and nervously send off the email. You're rather convinced you'll never hear back from any of these places, but the act of trying to change your situation instead of stewing on it actually feels quite freeing. You find yourself trying to stifle the hope that you end up getting the creative job, but it still manages to bubble up anyway. Blup, same, and same. Whoa. Oh, this is different. You have started taking medication. You are hoping that it will work, but you aren't optimistic and are worried about the side effects. Yes. Yep. Side effects suck. Especially when they're in bedroom stuff. How the fuck am I gonna do this? It's a little past 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You're at your computer, frustration levels peaked, rubbing your eyes and sighing heavily. You're working on a project from your job that has you stretched to withstand, trying to meet a looming deadline, and as it looks closer and closer, you are seriously doubting your ability to get it done. You're dragging your feet a little at work due to your complete lack of energy lately. In spite of wanting to do a good job, you find yourself unable to push past it and feel horribly useless for it. You slide your hands off your face to look at your screen as it beeps at you. Attic! Hey, are you there? I really need to talk to someone about something. You feel like you're getting nowhere with your current task and could probably use a break. However, you know that you have a history of getting distracted and then losing the motivation to pick something back up again afterward. What do you do? Fuck that! I'm totally with standing for friends, especially considering you put so much trust into him and all that shit. Yeah, fuck that. You're not gonna get progress on the thing. Answer him. You're feeling like you've hit a brick wall with your tasks, so why not take a break and help out a friend? You say, hey, what's up? Attic says, oh, good you're there. I just found out that I got cheated on. I don't know what to do. You say, oh, no, that's horrible. The two of you talk for a long time, and you lend a shoulder to your friend. You give him space to rant, to cry, and most importantly, to be able to voice his inner turmoil. You give him your full attention and talk him through what his options are for what he does next. You keep him from doing something rash, and the two of you decide it's best for him to sleep on it before doing anything. Exhausted, he departs for bed and thanks you for being there to talk with him. As you close the IM window, you feel horribly sorry for your friend, but happy that you were able to help. It serves as a tangible reminder to you that you're capable of being useful to someone instead of solely being a mess that needs everyone else's help. You boot up your work project and find that you're suddenly able to get some solid progress done on it that night. Blah, 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 blah. Your medication is helping to keep the edge off and keep some of the darker and more negative feedback loops from being as prevalent. Awesome! I think we're making progress. It's a sunny Sunday afternoon. You're in deep thought on the way home from therapy. However, you notice that this time that you're not in the same negative feedback loops you usually get trapped in when being this introspective. You realize that although you still have your bad days, your lows aren't quite as low as they used to be. Your answer to... Oh, sorry. I didn't see your message, rumor has it. This is not an online game. This is a game on Steam. It's called Depression Quest. It's basically a visual novel. Well, I mean, it's not even a visual novel. It's just a text adventure exploring somebody that's going through severe depression. So, yeah, I think it's pretty cheap on Steam, actually. But, yeah, it's interesting, especially considering, since I have bipolar 2, which leans a little bit heavier on the depressive side, I can identify with this quite a lot. So, yeah, it's a good game. Good game so far. Where the heck was I? You realize that although you still have your bad days, your lows aren't quite as low as they used to be. Your antidepressants bottle rolls across your dashboard as you take a left turn. You've been on this medication for quite a while now after a period of trying a few different kinds. Though you still have minor side effects, they've overall become an unnoticed part of your life. You feel as if your life has generally changed for the better recently, and you begin to wonder if you need them anymore. You don't feel as much despair or hopelessness, and you hate yourself a lot less these days. Maybe it's time to stop taking these, you think? I seem to not really need them anymore. That's the worst possible fucking thing you can do. Continue taking your meds. That's awful. Anyway, you have the realization that you can't be sure if it's a general life change that's making you feel better or if it's just a sign that the medication is working. You decide against discontinuing your meds. It's not really a lesson you'd like to learn the hard way, and the side effects of this particular kind are negligible. The next time you see Dr. Melville, you tell her about this. She informs you that this is a common train of thought that people have who have begun using medication to help them manage their depression experience, and that you've managed to dodge a bullet because it generally ends poorly. She also asks you to talk to her first before making any decisions about your medication in the future. I am moderately depressed. I find it hard to focus on anything because you get physically and mentally exhausted. Very cool. I mean, that's an improvement. You're a therapist with a good counselor. You're doing cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, and they are starting to help. Oh, that's a very effective therapy thing. Yes. Your medication is helping to keep the edge off and keeps on the darker mood. Yep. It's yet another sleepless Thursday night. You're at Alex's apartment, wide awake in bed as she's sleeping peacefully beside you. She fell asleep hours ago, and you've been laying here unable to shut your brain up long enough to fall asleep. You've added the feelings of insecurity about your relationship to the rest of the noise in your head keeping you up tonight. It was kind of a tense night between the two of you. You arrived after a stressful day at work, and as you made dinner together, you barely said a word. You were stuck in your own head and had a hard time really being present with her as your thoughts turned to all the ways you feel like you're deficient at being a good person and beating yourself up mentally for each one. I can relate. She told you she could tell you were in one of your moods, and said she wouldn't push you, but missed talking to you as the two of you sat on the couch together. You wanted to tell her how much you love her, but you couldn't make the words come out right and ended up sounding defensive instead. Oof. It's not good. As you lay next to her now, you trace your fingers across her arm just slightly enough to not wake her. You still haven't explained your depression to her or how you've started seeing a therapist or that you've been taking medication, and it's starting to feel more and more like a secret you're keeping instead of something she simply doesn't know about you yet. It's becoming more and more apparent that it's impacting your relationship with her, and you feel guilty about this. However, you're also terrified that if she knew exactly how fucked up you are, that she would leave you. You already worry that she's only with you because she doesn't realize how terrible of a person you are yet, and you're afraid that this would be the final thing to expose you. Can relate. She stirs in her sleep and squints as she opens her eyes. With the confusion that comes with waking up, she asks if you're awake, and then if everything's okay. This one's hard, because, just waking up in the middle of the night, this is not the ideal time to have this discussion. The ideal time would be when she's completely awake and stuff, because now she's just going to have way too much things on her mind to go back to sleep. I'm hoping that this game doesn't go to the point where it's like, oh, you can't, she breaks up with you because you say it's nothing, when I want to just wait for a better time to talk to her about it. Fuck it, let's tell her about the situation. YOLO! You feel like a jerk for accidentally waking her up, but you're afraid if you put this off any longer that you won't find the strength to tell her everything later. No, actually, everything isn't okay. Can I tell you something? Something important? Alex sits up, rubbing the sleep out of her eyes. For the rest of the night, you lay side by side, holding hands as you tell her everything. You tell her how it's more than just feeling sad sometimes, how you feel trapped by your own mind sometimes, how sometimes you feel nothing at all, and how you can't shake it off. You tell her how you've started going to therapy, how you feel embarrassed about it, and how it's working out for you. She listens the entire time, occasionally asking questions about how this or that works, or asking you to explain something further. She squeezes your hand and tells you she understands, and that she's sad you didn't tell her sooner. Oh, that's really nice. I almost feel like choking up. After laying silent for a moment, the weight of what you did hits you. You desperately want her to say something, to tell you how she's feeling about all this, but you're too afraid of what the answer would be to ask. You start convincing yourself that now that she knows everything, she's going to leave. There's no way someone could deal with how you really are. So how can I help? What do you really need me to do? She asks. You think for a second, and the answer you come up with fills you with despair. I honestly don't know. I wish I knew how to fix this, but I don't know that you can do anything. I think it's something I just have to live with. She looks at you with sad eyes before kissing you on the forehead. Then I'll live it with you. Wow! Okay, this game got me. Jesus Christ. Whew. I'm okay. I don't know how you could possibly love me. She rolls over and wraps her arms around your neck, settling her head on top of yours. You don't need to. Just know that I do. Wow! Holy shit! I didn't expect to cry this evening, but, there's some tears. That's good content for the internet, right? Blah, 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 blah. Jesus. It's a Friday night and you're laying across your bed feeling pathetic. As you were leaving work tonight, a group of coworkers asked if you wanted to join them for drinks. Feeling antisocial and put on the spot, you declined. You have a habit of doing this. You're often so convinced that you are weird and terrible and that any invitation to hang out will end in disappointment for those inviting you. You never feel like you know how to act in group outings, and you feel like a total creep since it seems to come so naturally to anyone who isn't you. You find someone petrified of breaking some unknown social rule that you don't often go out. Now, however, you find yourself alone at home. Your brain has begun telling you how pathetic and sad you are for being unable to be just a normal human person and go out with nice people. You can't figure out why you can't just go out and meet people and enjoy yourself. At the same time, you're also feeling like no one would possibly want you to hang out if they really knew you, because you're dull and weird anyway. You try your typical strategy and boot up Netflix to distract yourself from these feelings. Frustration with yourself builds, and you realize you have to do something else with your night. Anything else to take your mind off of how awful and lonely you feel right now. What do? I cannot get over it and go out to the bar where your coworkers are hanging out anyway. I can see if Attic is online, call Alex, drink, go out somewhere alone. See if Alex is online. This has been a confidant of ours. You sit down at your computer and open your chat client. Attic is indeed online, and the two of you catch up briefly before you start passing links to news stories and weird YouTube videos back and forth. Eventually, he asks if you'd like to play a multiplayer game with him, and you start the download. Realizing you haven't eaten yet, you tell him you'll be back in time for the download to finish after you made yourself dinner. Out in the kitchen, you notice the time on your microwave. Several hours more than you had expected had passed, and you're only just... What? Though it's not going out to a bar with people, you feel like this has taken the edge off the loneliness and you were experiencing earlier. What? Oh, okay. I thought he was out in the kitchen for several hours, and that would be, not great. But, yeah. No. Actually, time passed... yada yada yada. While he was talking with Attic. That's good. I feel like this is taking the edge off of loneliness that you were experiencing earlier. Even though he's an internet friend, sometimes when you are too down to be social, he's the perfect person to talk to. You connect with him on a meaningful level, and you found it easier to be yourself while talking to him than you do in most face-to-face social interactions. When you're down, you find yourself using this as another reason to feel like a loser, as though you can only make friends if they didn't have to deal with you in person. But for now, you're relieved to be around him. You finish making your sandwich and sit back down at your computer. Your download is finished and Attic's waiting on you to start. You are definitely still depressed, but things are getting better. Whatever you're doing seems to be working. You really feel like you're taking steps to affect positive change in your life. You now seem to be enjoying your therapist. Hey! Rumor has it, I'll see you later. If you do stop by, or if you're streaming, maybe I'll stop in after I'm done streaming. Who knows? Who cares? I do. But anyway, thank you for stopping by and saying hello and all that jazz. Hope you have a good one. You now seem to enjoy seeing your therapist between giving you a chance to talk things out and the CBT techniques that she shares with you. You find your sessions extremely helpful. You have been taking your medication regularly, and while you were skeptical at first, And while you're skeptical at first, I can talk. It's hard to argue with the fact that you're feeling better than you have in a long time. Aw, everything's going pretty well. It's a cold Saturday afternoon. Maybe next Mental Monday I'll do this and make all the wrong decisions and then cry like a bitch at the end when the guy commits suicide. That'll be good content. You just arrived at Alex's apartment and you're happy to finally see her after a week of absence due to your schedules not lining up due to work and school. You hug her in the doorway, but she breaks away sooner than normal and sits down on the couch as you take off your sneakers and lay them in the usual place, right next to hers. There's something I was hoping we could talk about, actually, she says. You instantly worry that you're being blindsided by a breakup conversation due to the sudden shift in tone, but she quickly smiles and puts you at ease once she sees all of the color leave your face. It's nothing bad, I promise. With that, she leads you over to the couch and sits on the other end of it, facing you. So I hope this doesn't freak you out, and if you feel like things are going too fast, just tell me. She talks faster than usual and fidgets. You seem to have a lot of weeks just like this, and they really suck. I was thinking I'd ask, since things are so strong with this, what are your thoughts on maybe moving in together? Whoa! Whoa! It takes a few seconds to sink in, and leaves you a bit shocked when it does. You were worried she wanted to spend less time with you, not more. Do you want to? You ask. Well, yeah, I do. I mean, we'd have to sort out logistics and everything, but those are all things we can take care of. You start to walk through the steps of imagining the two of you living together. You love the thought of being able to wake up next to her every day and seeing her so often. However, the more you picture it, the more a few concerns become apparent. There are things she's insulated from, like the days you don't feel like you can even get out of bed, the nights your medication keep you from being able to fall asleep. And all of the moments you'd stuck staring at the wall, completely out of energy and feeling nothing. How would she handle that? How quickly would she want to get away? So, she asks. What do you say? Or what do you think? I can't take my relationship to the next step with ease. I can tell her I want to, but have concerns and discuss them honestly. I can tell her I don't think it's a good idea right now. I can decide to move in regardless of your worries. Nope, be honest, be upfront. Communication is so important. Oh my god, I've already been on for a freaking hour and a half? What the fuck? Are really worried that if Alex were to live with you, she wouldn't be able to deal with your days of being unable to get out of bed or nights where you can do nothing but stare at the wall and panic. Even though you've discussed your situation with her, you still feel that she doesn't realize the depths of how bad it can get. It's one thing for you to detail how you feel sometimes, and for her to see it pop up occasionally. It's an entirely different situation for it to be something she has to live with alongside you. Well, I'd like to, but I think it's best if we talk about it a bit more before committing to a decision. Though she seems a little defeated, you make it clear that you're not making excuses and actually mean that you want to talk. You reiterate a lot of what you told Alex that night, and although she gets a little defensive and tells you that she knows all of that already, she confirms that she is willing to help you sort through your issues. I feel like you forget that I love you sometimes. I know that there will be bad days, and I'd rather try to work through them with you. We can figure all of this out together. Her words sway you, and you can't help but hold her close to you. Aw. It's December, and you've returned to your parents' house to celebrate the holidays with your family. Out the living room window, you can see a gentle flurry of snow drifting down to meet the pristine blanket of white from yesterday's unexpected Christmas Eve snowfall, and you quietly laugh to yourself at how incredibly cliche it seems. Still, as you sit down to dinner, you can't help but notice how being surrounded by family and the overtly kitschy atmosphere your mother's decorations have created have actually made you feel relaxed and almost comfortable. Holy shit! Your mom is running around and frantically checking the oven and the stockings and just generally trying to family time it up, while your dad sits at the head of the table drinking a beer and laughing with your brother Malcolm. His wife Karen is there too, whom you've always gotten along well with. I can talk! As you thoughtfully munch away at your turkey, listening to the conversations around you, your thoughts drift back over the last few months. You think about how hard things have gotten, replaying over in your head some of your worst as well as some of your best memories. It seems like all of these things just came to a head over the past few months with a sudden flurry of relationship turmoil and professional anxiety, social stress, and above all, an omnipresent sense of weight that it seems like you've just recently become aware of. You're drawn out of your reverie by your dad's familiar, booming laugh as some cheesy comment Malcolm made seems to have hit its mark. Sitting at that table, you're suddenly immensely glad for the chance to be able to ignore everything for an evening and not have to struggle trying to explain yourself for once. Fortunately, everyone seems to be content with laughing at each other's jokes and discussing favorite sports teams? Jesus. And for a while, you think you'll be able to get through dinner without any embarrassing personal intrusions. But no sooner did the thought cross your mind, the table conversation trickles off, leaving a slightly awkward silence to descend upon the dinner. So how are you doing these days? Your mom asks you pointedly. It's such a simple question, and one that you seemed to have had to answer countless times recently. You take a moment to collect your thoughts, then looking up, you take a deep breath. Well, you've never really thought of yourself as a fighter. And is this the end of the game? I think this is the end of the game. Yep. And even to say it now, it sounds hokey, but looking back on the past few months to where you are now, it really does feel like you've endured an immense struggle, and you look at it where you are now with a sense of something that isn't quite pride. You still hate your job and find it unpleasant, but you're surprised to find that going into work every day is no longer a monumental challenge. You started adopting some clever techniques, like taking short 2-minute breaks every hour to break up the monotony, and you now view your job as just 8 short hours of your day. A compartmentalization technique Dr. Melville told you about that you found actually works quite well. You know this job isn't what you want to for the rest of your life, and you've started actively looking for other positions, even attending a couple of preliminary interviews. You've started making effort to go out with your friends more. While the social scene still makes you very uncomfortable sometimes, you're more and more able to let yourself just enjoy the company of friends. In fact, your relationship with many of them has increased over the past little while. You still definitely have days where you flake out or don't feel up to hanging out, but for the most part, your friends are understanding and appreciate your communication. By far the biggest change you've noticed in your life has been in your relationship with Alex. You were terrified of talking to her about everything at first, but looking back, you feel like it's only strengthened your relationship. She was always supportive of you emotionally, but lately the two of you have been even more in sync, and it's really starting to feel like you're building a life together. It even seems like the two of you have been making a more concerted effort to sync up your schedules, and have been spending more and more of your own downtime with each other. Pretty soon you think moving in together may be a very real possibility. Dr. Melville has commented on how well you seem to be doing, and whether a result of the therapy, the medication, or both, you can't help but agree. With all that seems to have improved recently, it's sometimes difficult for you to think about the fact that you still have bad days. Sometimes even really bad days. And that's something that, you just have to accept, is that it's an ongoing process. There's never going to be like a clear finish line. I mean, even the fact that I'm very decently medicated, I have therapy and all this other stuff, and I'm very stable for somebody who has bipolar. Even I have really bad days, even with the medication and all that stuff. So, well, I mean, I'm not seeking therapy right now because the last therapist I had was absolutely freaking horrible. Oh my god, I can't. I don't even want to talk about how bad my last therapist was. Jesus fucking Christ. But the medication aspect is in a really good spot. Anyway, they served as a stark reminder of the fact that this will be something you likely have to deal with for the rest of your life. Depression is a battle, and though you're certainly ahead in the fight, you know the battle isn't ever going to be over. Sometimes even Alex can tell when things are going rough, despite your best efforts to the contrary. While you know that your depression can never be cured, you have a very strong support network in your friends and even Malcolm, and armed with a newfound confidence in your friends and family, you accept that though the road may be rocky, it is at very least not solitary. You meet your mom's gaze from across the table and muster up a smile. "I'm good, Mom," you tell her. She says nothing, but you can feel her smile from across the room. Epilogue. We really want to thank you for taking the time to play Depression Quest. We realize it may not be the most enjoyable game you've ever played or even the easiest, and we sincerely appreciate your involvement. Like Depression itself, Depression Quest does not have an end, really. There is no neat resolution to depression, and it was important to us that Depression Quest's own resolution reflect that. Instead of a tidy ending, we want to just provide a series of outlooks to take moving forward. After all, that's all we really can do with depression, just keep moving forward. And at the end of the day, it's our outlook and support from people just like you that makes all the difference in the world. Thanks again. Hey, you know what? That was really cool. I enjoyed that quite a bit. I even cried at one point, which is something I wasn't expecting. I mean, I probably should have expected it because this game has gotten a lot of acclaim, and I can identify with a lot of the stuff that's going on in it. But yeah, I don't think anybody actually saw my tears, so that's a win for me. Oh man. Anyway, that's it for me. Oh my god, I forgot the Derpy Dragon was my background logo this time. I actually have that on a face mask. Oh man.